Yeah, this is a heavy, heavy film. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel. Ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you'll be among the first to know. So I've sat with Nomadland for a bit now. I watched this movie a week ago, and have sort of been trying to process not how I feel about it, but how to approach talking about it. So, for those of you who don't know, Nomadland is a film starring Frances McDormand as Fern. She's a woman who works at a plant in Empire, Nevada, small place in Nevada, and loses her job. Right before she loses her job, she also loses her husband. And so, with that job being closed, that plant being closed, that plant was basically the foundation of the entire small city of Empire, Nevada. When that closes, the city basically just shuts down, which I've never seen before, but apparently just gets wiped off the map to the point where the zip code is no longer registered as a zip code. So Fern has to sell all of her prized possessions, or what some of her most prized possessions, keeps a few of them, buys a van, and just goes around the town, goes around the world, more or less, trying to find jobs to sustain this way of life. And just moving from town to town, sometimes at an Amazon fulfillment center, which that is a completely different discussion. But that's sort of what this story is. This is a very deliberately paced film, and I am purposely not using the word slow because I don't think it's slow. And if anybody who's watched enough of these reviews know that if I thought it was slow, I would say it was. I say deliberately paced because it knows what it's doing. It's taking its time. It's letting you breathe. And I never, no point did I ever want to check my watch or say that I was bored or tired of what I was seeing because I was fully invested in something that, topic wise, I have no clue as to what the hell this is, or I had any idea what this was about. But I say deliberately paced because it was putting me through the intricacies of what happens in a person's who chooses this lifestyle, who goes through this lifestyle day to day. And that's sort of what you get to put me in the moment or the breath of what this life feels like. Look, watching this movie gave me a very eye opening look into a world and a group of people that I didn't know anything about, didn't know exist, didn't know it still exists. It definitely was an eye opening look at how these Amazon fulfillment centers are filled and how these jobs are done by these day laborers who are basically living in a van, don't have a pot to piss in, literally, um, but are making money for these multi-million-dollar corporations. Um, but they have to sustain their life by going from job to job to job. When the winter hits, can't really live in this area anymore because the winter makes it almost unbearable to live in your van during this point in time. It's heartbreaking, but it's also admirable to watch because these people are very resilient, and find ways to survive and find the joy and the heart and the love in some of the smallest and just what we who are quote unquote well to do take for granted. What As the story goes on, we find out that there's more to the reason why Fern is choosing this life and doing this life because we see it throughout the course of the film that she gets multiple opportunities, and people who are willing to help her out of this. There are people. This isn't a thing where these folks are doing this because they are completely alone. They may feel isolated from their day to day life, but there are other people in these folks' worlds who are willing to help them out. But for whatever their reasoning is, and they all have a reason, but whatever their reasoning is, this is the lifestyle that they choose to remain in. It's fascinating to watch. It makes this very intriguing and engrossing character study. And when you're doing character studies, there's really no better actress to have than Frances McDormand, who nails it. She's definitely should be and is on the list of all like top actresses, best actresses performances this year. Let's talk about a little bit about Chloé Zhao, who most recognizable name will probably be for the upcoming Marvel's The Eternals, which Marvel has a penchant for grabbing these directors right before they blow up and start getting some artistic look here and there. She does a great job with this film. She shoots an amazing portrait of life. It never feels overly artsy like some directors can get, where you're like, oh, the shot is I'm going to do this big wide scoping thing, and this is what you're looking at, and you're like, oh, look at the scale, look at all of this. That's not really what she's about, but what she does is she takes her time with Frances, our lead, and she takes her time with these character moments, and she shows the ins and outs of each of their lives and what they sort of have to go through to make you, as the viewer, feel 100% invested in a life you don't know and 100% invested in characters that you starting sort of to relate to. She breaks things down with her camera so that things that you're like, there's no way in hell that I do that, but you're like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. I can now relate to this on some level. She also does a great job of creating the scope of what this life is when you see these far shots of what the road is and how alone and empty it is. As a viewer, you can feel that from the eyes of the character. And it's funny because there's a moment in this film where I just started thinking, I'm like, hold on. I know as a person who's got money and sort of take care of himself and lives in a place, but when you're talking about vehicles, that stuff adds up. Like you, all of a sudden, you think you may be fine, and all of a sudden, something goes wrong with your car, and you're not really able to move it, and you have to spend money. And I'm sitting here like, these folks are like living their life in a van, and anything possibly goes wrong with their van. Oh, got it. Yep, we're gonna touch on that too. Cool. Then yes, then I can see how much of a string this lifestyle lives on and how much they have to do to kind of continue this going. And it's a fascinating look into this world. So look, I enjoy this movie a lot. It's not for everybody. Like I can recommend this to certain people that I know are my film folks, and they'll be into it. This isn't a film like I actively give One Night in Miami or Promising Young Woman, like, you should watch those. I can't quite do that with this film, and not because it's not on the level of those. It's just I don't think everybody's going to digest this and accept this as openly as some of those films. But I do think there is definitely a group of people that will enjoy the ride this film takes you on. So on my scale of once is enough, Play It Again, Sam, or give me a time stone, so I never have to think about this film again. This is Play It Again, Sam. Again, like I said, it's specific based, but this is Play It Again, Sam. I think this is a really well done film. It's a gorgeous film. It's a poignant film. And I think if anybody ever wants to take a moment to sort of step out of their day-to-day life and just get a slice of what other people or another group of people go through, this is something to watch. What did you guys think of Nomadland? Go ahead and leave your comments in the comments below. If you haven't, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. We are currently doing the history of sitcoms through WandaVision, which with our guest host Jamie Jarrett. You can find that here also in YouTube. We have a video version of that as well. We also have a sister podcast called You Can't Do That Anymore, where we talk about classic films such as American Beauty, Gone with the Wind, Back to the Future, and look at those films in the day that they came out versus today through the eyes of 2021 and see if there are some things that those films just can't quite do anymore. But like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.